From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
The Horse Gulch fire is now larger than 7,500 acres with 0% of it contained. Right off the top, we bring you the latest from Helena on efforts to stay a step ahead of the blaze.
A defiant President Biden makes the case for why he should stay in the race. I'm Jared Hill with a response from Democrats and his Republican rival.
I'm Jonathan Ambarian at the state capitol. I'll break down a dispute between the Montana Secretary of State's office and supporters of a proposed ballot initiative over whose signatures are valid when it comes to qualifying a measure for the ballot.
Suicide is never an easy topic. That's why the whole family is bringing light to Montana's mental health crisis with the Landon's Light Memorial Mountain Bike Race.
Alrighty, it is 6 o'clock on this Friday morning. Jane McDonald and Matt Elwell with you. July 12th, and of course we are still eyeing that Horse Gulch fire that's happening east of Helena.
And it's impacting not only that area around Canyon Ferry and those areas, but also some farther reaches, especially as we get into the weekend. We're still dealing with some windy conditions and some smoke and haze. We are basically dealing with temperatures that are a little above where we would like them to be right now, but it's not bad. We've cooled down quite a bit here over the last hour. It won't be long. We're going to see these temperatures warming back up. There are some outside chances, some passing showers. It's mainly a mountain shower or two, but there is the potential of some showers in parts of Gallatin, Madison, Park County, back getting out toward Gray Cliff and Stillwater County as well later this afternoon. Light haze in our sky right now. Our air quality's doing pretty good for the most part. 90s for the afternoon again today. Still a pretty dry stretch for us. I'm going to talk more about that and some fire concerns that we may have over the next few days in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. Now, new evacuations are being ordered for areas around the Horse Gulch fire northeast of Helena. People living to the north of the fire now must leave the area, joining those to the south and west who had to evacuate on Wednesday. MTN's Allison Kaiser has more from a public meeting that was held last night with the Lewis and Clark County Sheriff.
Your heart drops, your stomach drops, and it's just a million things going through your head.
Thursday marks the third day that the Horse Gulch fire has been burning. At the time of this report, it has amassed over 7,500 acres with 0% of it contained. But no structures have been damaged at this point, and there have been no reported power outages.
You prepare for it, you know, you live in the forest, you prepare for it, but it's just one of those things where it really hits home when you hear that knock on the door. Suddenly, you know, you're looking around your house completely different because you're looking for treasured items and you're looking at, you know, what you can carry and what you can take. And it's kind of heartbreaking because I know that there are people that are going to lose, you know, a lot of memories.
During the meeting, the Forest Service said that initially over 40 people and 1 helicopter responded to the fire. Dutton reminded people to avoid the area, but said that law enforcement can escort residents back to their homes to collect items. Residents were curious about what action could be taken against the person or people who started the fire.
The fact that you caused all of this damage and you've displaced all these people and you caused the death of a pilot, someone better be prosecuted for this. This is serious. It was an accident, I get that, but it's not an accident when people's lives are at stake.
A Type 3 incident management team took over fire operations Thursday morning. A Type 3 team typically includes between 10 to 20 people, specifically trained to manage major complex incidents. According to the Forest Service, firefighting efforts for Thursday focused on limiting fire spread to the south and west to keep the fire from moving onto private lands.
And the identity of the pilot who died when her firefighting plane crashed into Hauser Lake Wednesday afternoon is now known. 45-year-old Juliana Turchetti was flying a single-engine air tanker out of Idaho. According to Ag Air Update, Turchetti was one of Brazil's first female agriculture pilots. In a joint statement, the governors of Montana and Idaho said they were deeply saddened to learn of Turchetti's passing. According to the Lewis and Clark County Sheriff Leo Dutton, Turchetti was living in Illinois and worked as a pilot for Dauntless Air. Now on the national scene, today President Biden is back on the campaign trail in the battleground state of Michigan after wrapping up the NATO summit. Yesterday, the president insisted he's not ending his re-election run during a news conference, even as more House Democrats joined calls for him to do so. CBS News' Jared Hill has the latest from New York.
I'm determined on running,
In a rare solo news conference, an energetic President Joe Biden defied calls to drop out of the 2024 race.
I've got to finish this job because there's so much at stake.
The president faced tough questions for an hour as he tried to tamp down concerns over his age and fitness for office.
I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams. Can you name me somebody who's got more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years?
But last night, more House Democrats publicly called on the president to step aside. Among them, Connecticut's Jim Himes on CNN.
In the next 96 hours, perhaps, is the moment to set aside the poetry, the loyalty, and the love, and ask yourself a hard question, which is, are you sure he's going to win?
The president's performance reassured other Democrats.
I think he convinced a lot of people he should stay in the race.
The gaffe-prone president did make a few missteps yesterday. First, flubbing his introduction of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at a NATO event.
President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky.
And later, while referring to his running mate, Vice President Kamala Harris.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
Former President Donald Trump mocked the gaffe on social media, writing Biden, quote, has Trump derangement syndrome. Jared Hill, CBS News.
And it's important to note that while Congressman Jim Himes called on President Biden to drop out, he also said he will work to get the president reelected if he remains the Democratic nominee. Himes is now one of 17 congressional Democrats to publicly say Mr. Biden should step aside, and CBS News has learned as many as a dozen others could also come forward. Now, back in some Treasure State headlines, a New Mexico man has admitted to stealing historic artifacts, including letters by the wife of Montana artist C.M. Charlie Russell from the Montana Historical Society. 49-year-old Brian D'Ambrosio pleaded guilty to theft of major artwork in federal court. D'Ambrosio reportedly took multiple artifacts from the Historical Society archives between April of 2022 and September of 2023 to resell on eBay. According to prosecutors, all the items were more than 100 years old, of cultural significance, and valued at more than $5,000. An undercover FBI agent posed as a would-be purchaser to confirm D'Ambrosio was the individual stealing the items. D'Ambrosio faces a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison and up to $250,000 in fines. He is set to be sentenced in November. And supporters of a proposed ballot measure to specifically add abortion rights to Montana's constitution say state officials are improperly rejecting petition signatures. They claim those rejections are based on whether somebody has recently voted. MTN senior political reporter Jonathan Amberian takes a closer look at that claim.
Montanans Securing Reproductive Rights says they collected more than 117,000 signatures to get Constitutional Initiative 128 onto the ballot in November. On Tuesday, they put out a statement saying that valid signatures were being rejected because of new guidance from the Montana Secretary of State's office. The group said they filed public records requests and received emails between the Secretary of State's office and local election administrators, in which state officials said they should not count petition signatures from voters who are registered but on the inactive list. Inactive voters either haven't voted in a recent general election or had a mail ballot returned as undeliverable. They don't receive mail ballots, but they can reactivate their registration by going to the polls to vote or filling out a form. Montana law says you have to be a qualified elector to sign a petition. MSRR said the state constitution says anyone who meets registration and residency requirements is a qualified elector, and that should include people on the inactive list. They said they'd file suit if the Secretary's office didn't change course. In a response to MTN, the Secretary of State's office said this wasn't new guidance. They pointed to a section of Montana law that says an inactive voter becomes a qualified elector by going through the reactivation process, so they argued those voters aren't qualified. They also cited an Oregon Supreme Court ruling that said inactive voters aren't eligible to sign initiative petitions. Any legal action on this issue could affect not only CI 128's qualification, but also two other proposed measures, CI 126 and 127, which would overhaul the state's election system. County election officials are supposed to forward petitions and certified signatures to the Secretary of State's office by July 19th. The Secretary of State will then make the determination of which proposed measures qualified for the ballot. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
And a local Bozeman family is honoring their son's memory and bringing awareness to Montana's mental health disparities with a mountain bike race. MTN's Heaven Van gives us a look at the upcoming fundraiser.
After Landon Hull passed by suicide in 2022, the Hull family wanted to be a light to Montana's mental health crisis. That's why they're holding the Landon's Light Memorial Mountain Biking Race right here on the Wellness Trail.
He was on a bike from about as old as you can sit on a seat. He did BMX and basically anything with two wheels.
When Landon's mental health took a turn, the Hulls say that finding mental health services was difficult.
Pretty soon after losing him, we realized that the lack of enough mental health care resources here in Bozeman was an issue not just for our family, but for many, many families, and we wanted to be a part of the solution.
To honor Landon's memory and tackle Montana's mental health desert, the Hulls started the Landon Hull Memorial Scholarship for students pursuing careers in the mental health space. 100% of proceeds from the Landon's Light race will go into the scholarship fund, and this year 2 Montana students will be the first to receive it. The Hulls welcome anybody to participate.
Well, the lengths on it is going to be 4, 8, and 12 miles. So we think we have a great length for anybody that wants to come out just for fun and do 1 lap of our course, which is 4 miles, all the way up to 3 laps.
A portion of the course will pass through GVLT's new Wellness Trail, located behind the Help Center's new mental health campus, a growing resource in Montana. Offering prizes for racing, costumes, and even cheerleading, Kimmelin stresses the importance of the community in battling mental health issues.
It's important to understand that people are complicated, and Landon had so much light in him, even though he also struggled with some darkness. And this event is about sharing his light and letting people know that it's possible to have light even in the midst of the darkness. And as a community, we can help each other find our light again, and we can share our light with each other.
In Bozeman, Heaven Van, MTN News.
Now you can scan that QR code that was just on the screen, or you can pop over to our website.
Yeah,
we'll have all
good
that
information,
too.
important information that we all need to stay adhered to.
Absolutely. Well, and what just sticks out to me is all the proceeds will go towards that scholarship, but this is also a great way for the community just to get together in a moment like this.
That's right.
I think it's pretty incredible stuff. Now, before we take a break, we're actually going to be heading back east. Now, lots of crazy things can happen back east, whether it's Florida or up in New Jersey.
Cut some donuts, huh?
Yeah, why not? But the only problem is there's no driver on that boat. The boat was a runaway speedboat.
That is actually very scary.
Extremely scary. But you can see there's a Sea-Doo behind it.
Yeah, trying to catch up.
Yep, a teenager is manning that Sea-Doo,
my goodness.
jumped onto it, and was finally able to get control and get that boat to stop just making all those circles.
Oh, what a daredevil to be able to do that.
I mean, talk about guts.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know.
and it's a runaway boat. I mean, how scary is that?
Absolutely scary. So thankfully he was able to act quick, get on the back of a Sea-Doo and get into
As
action.
we like to say, it's always the right thing to do the right thing.
Yep.
Even if it's a little dangerous, I'm glad he was able to stop it and keep people from being hurt.
Yeah, you and me both. So kind of some fun news coming out of New Hampshire, some good and safe news there. Now, we're going to take that short break. When we come back, though, Matt's going to have a look at your forecast. We're going to have some of your top headlines, and MTN's Ryan Gamboa is going to introduce us to a Great Falls family going through the unthinkable as they searched for over a month for their missing daughter.